Welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce, episode 70. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
Welcome back to another wonderful week of divorce. But before we jump in, let's make sure we rate, review, and subscribe. So while you're out there tuning in, get her done.
Tell us how much you love us.
Why not? Why wouldn't you? And while you're out there, check out the website at lifelaughterdivorce.com. So boyfriend, I'm really excited about this because this is part 2 of...
It's a continuation.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really a part 2.
So I was going to say it's a part 2 of 2.
No, but their experiences, their life, how they got to where they are now,
right?
Is I wouldn't even put it as parts. It's just they've got this section where you hear about Chris,
right?
And you have this section about the marriage of Misty, and then her realization. Where we're at right now is her marriage and how she figures out what she really wants.
So we have sections A, B, and C, and we're now in the C section.
Boo. Boo.
That was a joke just for Glenn, Chris, and Misty, and all of you listeners. And the other side note that I have for this particular episode, you guys, now that I have everyone's attention, is that I don't know about you, but as boyfriend and I have been talking about this for the past couple of weeks with these particular sections, Chris and Misty are now known as Christy, like Brangelina or Benifer, or are there any others?
That's all her. That's not me.
Okay. So if you hear me say Christy, it's Chris and Misty. And then, of course, there's Glenn, who is also in this episode and the previous 2 episodes. So I think where we left off last time on episode 69 is, will Misty and her ex make it?
Probably not.
And what becomes of Chris, the bridesmaid, and a bottle of Crown?
One of them is going to be finished off.
We're going to find out right now. So pull up a comfy chair, grab your favorite beverage or a snack, and get ready to listen to Christy, Chris, Misty, and Glenn. Without further ado.
Again, he was Jewish, and we had, you break the glass in the bag. Her maid of honor, in a fit of brilliance, ran across the street and bought a bottle of Crown Royal to get the purple bag,
so that he could break a glass in a bag.
In the bag,
we didn't have a bag.
So they leave, and whatever room we had for the bride or bridesmaids, whatever, her maid of honor and I went into this room together, basically switched into our just PJs. We cracked open this bottle of Crown, and we spent the next 4 hours just bitching. We just vented to each other
After the wedding?
After the wedding.
Really?
On the agenda.
No,
it was not on his agenda. No.
They had gone to do whatever, and she
we
and I
were
just
in our room.
poured ourselves a couple doubles of whiskey, and we're like,
After the reception or
after the reception.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That night, and we're like, they are doomed.
Really?
Yeah. We were like, have you ever, and we just shared every story. Like, have you ever tried to talk to her? Have you ever talked to him? Like, well, they weren't listening. They didn't care. And we just kind of told every story that we'd ever had of every interaction that we saw. And we were just like, how long do you think they'll last?
Really?
Horrible bunch of bridesmaids and groomsmen.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was like this slow train wreck that we didn't know how to stop.
They didn't understand. You expect your friends to say, no, you're with a bad person. You really should not have this relationship. You should, move to somebody else. But when you live in the South and you're an introvert. In my head, I'm still like, well, I can handle this. He'll change. We'll have, better discussions when we're married, da, 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 da. Oh no, that's not what happened. But, my friends, they tried and I just didn't listen. I don't know if anybody talked to.
Well,
God damn it.
You don't know if anyone talked to your ex.
Yeah.
Or Guadalupe.
The other part of that is that I at the time was closer to him than I was to you. I
Yeah.
had known you longer, but you and I hadn't really become really close friends.
Right.
And I would bring up the arguing, but part of me was thinking that he argues with everybody.
Right.
Like I didn't really understand the depth to which she was affected because he
Right.
was like this. To me, he was just an ass. He would pick fights with our. We have a friend who lives in London now who's like a really posh kind of. He's a bon vivant, and he's been this way since he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
And he had a whole like upper shelf in our 20s in college, $100 bottles of scotch and cognac
Oh,
and
wow.
things. And her ex was like, "Oh, all that stuff you have up there is piss. My father's got better stuff than that." And our friend was just like, "Oh, that's great. I'm really happy for your father." Just
Yeah.
like whatever. dude.
Right.
Right.
So he was like that with a lot of people. So, I mean, I brought stuff up to him about it, but it was also part of like me feeling like this is none of my business,
Mhm.
and not quite realizing just the degree until it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think I realized how bad it was until a year after you were married when
Mhm.
we all went to Colorado.
But that's back to what you said before is the guy interaction is fine. You shove it
Yeah,
off
who
and you're done.
cares?
But you didn't realize that their relationship was like that the whole time.
Right.
And that's no way to have a relationship.
Right.
And I'll turn that over to Leanne, the relationship expert on this one.
No.
That's not
No.
how it should be.
But and also though, you had mentioned, Misty, that like your parents' relationship was kind of a model of what you had, and they argued a lot. So if they argued a lot, I'm guessing that maybe you thought, well, this is normal and this is to be expected in a relationship.
Right. Yeah. And my mom and my stepdad. So actually, eventually my mom and my stepdad and my half brother moved to California. And when I went out to visit them with my ex, they were bickering, and I'm like, why is she putting up with this? And then it dawned on me, why the fuck am I putting up with this? Because this is the exact same shit that my ex would do to me. And it was like, that was kind of a ding moment for me.
Mm.
So
you got married, and then how long did it last?
Yeah.
So this is the very seedy
No,
part.
Glenn, not 17 years.
This is the very seedy part of the story,
That was
actually,
pizza roll.
because
Jerry Springer portion. of it.
yeah. So get ready, podcast listeners. Here it comes.
Everybody, if you need now, take a pause,
So-
cue up the Barry White, go to the bathroom, grab a glass of wine.
So Chris has moved out to California. This is a year later, let's say.
So you've only been married a year.
I've been married a year, 2 years. Oh, no, well, let's go back to the 1 year first. Okay,
Colorado.
So Colorado. On our 1 year anniversary, that's when my ex's parents are moving their stuff to Colorado. Their
From
retirement
Texas.
home from
Just
Texas.
a second home.
It was the
for them.
second home that they were going to use during the summers because they were still university professors. They had the summers off. Basically, he had enough tenure that he didn't have to do any summer classes or anything like that. So they were looking to this as first of all like a second home, plus for the summers. Plus, it's going to be where they retire. And I assume at this point they're living there now full time. But so we're moving. Chris is helping. My sister is with us. She's helping. She just graduated high school. And
So you, your sister, Chris, and his helping his family move into the second
Colorado.
house.
We make
Yeah.
a big
It was a
caravan.
good-
We were making a big
okay.
week of
It
it.
was-
Let's
yeah.
go to Colorado. We'll help you move
And-
in.
So
It
in
was-
that
it was
year
our-
between in the year between the marriage and this first year anniversary, moving them up, you guys are still friends.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Thanks
We
for
hung out all the time. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I was in grad school at the time. Or I just finished my coursework in grad school,
I think by then you were officially both down in College
moving
Station.
in College Station.
But I remember coming down and visiting. We saw Star Wars Episode 1, and I bought a new car. I mean, I bought an old beat up car, and We were
Yeah.
still very much hanging out.
Yeah,
Cool.
just kind of going back and forth.
Boyfriend is excited. You're watching Star Wars. Okay.
Episode 1 was terrible.
So on the way through Dallas to go to Colorado, they basically picked me up, and I
Yeah.
rode shotgun in this minivan or moving van.
And we had, it was our first anniversary, and we had kept the top of the cake, so like we all had a piece of the cake.
Was yours actually really good? Because mine was actually really good.
We did it. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was a little
Yeah,
dry.
it's actually pretty good.
basically what you do is you like wrap it really good and then freeze
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And his parents had like a really good deep freeze. So
It's
you
pretty
freeze
good.
it and then
Put
you
it right
let it
next to
thaw.
Walt Disney's head.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to know what's in your freezer. Okay.
Just
Pizza
really
rolls
I don't
and
know what's in my
Walt's
van either.
pizza rolls, Walt Disney's head. Okay, go on. Misty.
so yeah, we ate the cake and then headed out to Colorado. When we had finished unloading the moving van, it was up to the four of us,
The youngins.
the
youngins.
20 somethings and the 18-year-old to take the U-Haul back to where it needed to go.
Pueblo, I think.
So at the time, Carl's Jr. was like my
we have to go to
ex's
Carl's Jr.
favorite place to go when we left Texas because there were no Carl's Jr.'s in Texas
I'm a
at the time.
California
Now
boy,
it's everywhere, but
What did they have?
the
Just for the
Double-
happy listeners that in case they ever go to
Well-
College Station, nowhere to get a good
Whataburger.
burger.
Yeah.
well, you don't want to go to
Burger Street.
Whataburger is in Texas, and that's
Whataburger?
probably
Whata.
Whataburger.
Whataburger.
Whataburger?
Yeah.
But it's all
Whataburger.
one word, so it's
Oh,
Whataburger.
Whataburger.
Burger Street's pretty good.
Mm.
But anyway, so yeah, Carl's Jr. We had to go to Carl's Jr. Well,
Ugh.
basically, my ex and I were fighting the entire time to take the U-Haul back to where it needed to go. So we had stopped at Carl's Jr. so that we could have lunch. Chris and my sister get out of the car because they're like, we're going
We've
in a
had it.
meeting.
We were like
We're
up to
done.
here. We're just ready. We just needed some quiet.
And we continued our argument in the van. Finally, I think probably 30 minutes, hour later.
But do you remember? Because I remember having this conversation with you. Is you chewed him out to the point because she had it. She would had it with his style of arguing and the not relenting. She finally said something to the effect of, "This needs to stop, or I will hire a lawyer and I will get divorced." She was like, "I cannot take this anymore."
Yeah, I was, we had talked about marriage counseling too. And he refused to go to marriage counseling because his mother was a psychologist. So he knew all the tricks that the psychologists do.
Because they're tricky.
Right,
like
they're
that.
tricky.
They
yeah,
make you
whatever.
talk about you.
No. So
And then they nod.
Free education, everyone.
so yeah, he wouldn't even go to a counselor.
She
and so
finally-
I felt defeated. And we finally, we were hungry, went into Carl's Jr., got our food.
He never left the car.
Oh, he didn't.
He
I don't
never left
remember
the car.
that.
Yeah, you came in. We were eating, and before she came in, I told your sister, "Don't get married," and she went,
No.
"Yeah." And you finally came in, and he sat in the car the entire time. And I
Yeah,
went out
just
eventually,
sulked.
and I go, "Hey, you want anything?" And he's like, I'm not feeling good." It's like he knew. I think he knew that he crossed the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, we drop off the U-Haul, head back to the house. And
Most of that trip
most of
was
that trip-
him arguing and yelling at his parents,
he was,
But that's
he
just
was not
like-
in a good spot.
just at each other's throats. And it was really him. I think he really needed to have it out with his parents a long time ago, and he never really figured out how to do that in the right way, in a healthy way.
And not to get me in the middle of it because the pizza place story, that happened a year before, where he just yelled at his
Oh, yeah,
parents and then sulked off. And then, I'm there stuck awkwardly with his parents who they were intimidating. So especially to me. So, not that they didn't like me. They liked me a lot. They
But it
didn't have a
wasn't-
problem with me. It was uncomfortable for me to be just sitting there with his parents and him and my ex-husband having gone off and just in the middle of a winter storm walking back to the hotel.
And again, our trip when we went to when I was there with them in Colorado, it was again another one of those situations where his father had nothing but great things to say about me,
Mhm.
which just agitated
him.
his son
Right.
unnecessarily, just poking him.
And I don't think he really knew what he was doing. But it affected my ex-husband.
So
But his
greatly.
wife's the psychologist. She should be like, hey,
Right.
don't do that to your son.
Honestly, there are some psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors who I feel get into that job because they need their own
They're trying to figure out
They're
their
trying
own
to
life.
figure out their own
But they're good
issues.
at it with others, not them.
And-
Right.
They
and
just
yeah,
need to make sure
exactly.
that there's relationships out there worse than their own.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And here's a good example is that she was specialized in her graduate work on geriatrics, and her father was had Alzheimer's, and she could not handle. I mean, like she did all the wrong things
Mm.
with her father that a person, a psychologist with specialization in geriatrics and Alzheimer's patients would not ever tell you to do. Like, remember this, remember that, showing pictures, remember this,
Making
and
the
just
person
making
upset.
him upset.
Oh.
Unnecessarily. Yeah. I
So,
think those type of people, my father's similar because he was a social worker. And it's kind of like, as long as it's not close to home, they're really good at it. Once it gets close to their own emotional,
It's
once they
too
have an emotional
much.
It's
stake in it,
blinders.
Yeah.
they can't handle
Yeah.
it.
mhm.
Well, okay. So you guys did this trip to Colorado, and how long after this was when you decided your aha moment?
So that I think that was really my aha moment, and really my ultimatum. But I was kind of stuck because I had just finished grad school, or I hadn't finished grad school at the time. I
it was incomplete. Yeah.
I finished the coursework.
ABT.
I still had to do my thesis.
Yeah.
And that ended up being an issue too. But he finished his degree, got his music education degree, and his big thing was he wanted to move back to College Station. Again, like a narcissist that I learned from your podcast. He took me away from my family unit and from my friends and my support group. He took me away from that support unit that I had. I had my master's was in international relations. I was, trying to finish my thesis 3 hours away from the university that I was getting my thesis from. So I didn't, and this is again before internet, what really took off, and you could get access to libraries and things online to get journal articles. And so he was taking me away from that into his comfort zone because he wanted to teach with his former band director.
And he kind of went out of his way to subtly convince her, you don't need that. And got her in. Didn't you you started working kind of in his field?
Well, so what happened was I've never been without a job. When I was in grad school, I worked either for like 40 hours for Sally Beauty Supply, the corporate office. It was in Denton. And then I was able to get a teaching assistant job. So I was technically working. I was making money. I was able to get through my coursework and all of that. And then had to move to College Station.
Mm.
And again, 3 hours away.
Right.
So what can you do in College Station, Texas with a master's degree? I didn't even have the master's yet. With a bachelor's degree in political science. Absolutely fucking nothing.
So you were kind of isolated.
So I
I
was.
say I have a bachelor's in political science. I could have answered that.
Yeah,
It's not just College Station.
No,
Pretty
it's
much
everywhere. It's anywhere.
Bachelor's in poli-sci,
You
No.
can park anywhere you want.
a liberal arts degree.
I teach
It's
computer
good.
science.
It's a liberal arts degree is good for just general jobs. Just having the degree itself was probably beneficial, but in College Station, there's no way I'm getting a job with a bachelor's degree in political science because the only thing there is really Texas A&M. You have to have a doctorate in order to be a professor.
Right.
So I'm still not finished with my master's even. So I started out teaching flute lessons and substitute teaching at the schools.
That's a big difference than what you set out to be doing.
It is. Granted, I actually had some experience. I was a music major for a little while. So I did have that experience, and I did teach flute for maybe a year before I decided to do political science. And so here I am teaching flute. And the reason why I got out of music education in college is because I really do not like children.
So they have 4 now. No, they don't.
So yeah, it was like, what else am I going to do? I substitute taught. I got paid $50 a day to substitute teach. And then I lowballed my lessons fee because I was young and inexperienced technically. So I got paid $12 a half hour lesson.
Wow.
With very few students. So I was really dependent on my ex to make all the money. And
Right.
in College Station, he was making good money. Plus, we were living in his grandmother's house. She had already, it was completely paid for. She had moved in with his parents in a kind of a attached casita type thing, a mother-in-law room, basically. So in College Station.
And this is Texas.
This is College Station, Texas. So,
You're living.
I'm living
rent-free,
rent-free.
in a nice house.
Yeah.
in a house with 4 bedrooms. Yeah, I think I have 4 or 5 bedrooms. It was a big house. And in a nice area. College Station was actually not bad unless it was a football game day, and then it was psycho. But, not being an Aggie, I felt out of place, really out of place.
Right.
But, I did
So you weren't in your element or anything, but you were very well taken care of. So you were in a position where you weren't financially independent.
right.
So leaving was kind of out of the question.
Exactly. And
Okay.
so a year has gone by and I'm miserable. I'm teaching flute. By I think the next year, so 2 years into the marriage, I had started teaching flute all day. Basically, the way that they do things in College Station is they do sectionals 4 days a week. So, they have somebody teaching the flutes, they have somebody teaching the clarinets, they have, basically, they don't bring the whole band together until Friday, just to work on that music. So they hired me as a consultant for $50 a day to teach flutes at all the schools, because all the band directors, College Station is a small town. There's only one high school. There were 2 middle schools and 2 intermediate schools. And my ex was the director at the intermediate school, but they all went to all the schools so that they could do these sectionals. But they didn't have a flute person. So they hired me as a consultant to do flute. So I'm stuck, literally dependent on my ex for my job.
So you're dependent on him for everything that you're living in, everything that you're working for, everything. So that's changed. And Chris, yes, and
Yes,
Chris is raising his
exactly.
hand again. He wants to chime in.
Yeah. So around 2000 is when a couple other things happen. Your mother moves to California.
Right. So
Her
again,
mother
I lose,
used to be a few hours away,
and now
she's now in
she's
California.
a flight
Farther
away.
and then I moved to California. I was another one who'd come visit them occasionally, and I remember going down and you guys buying a
You're not
car.
relevant.
It does bring you up. Thanks, Glenn.
Glenn said he's not relevant.
I am relevant.
In case you didn't hear me.
But no, I think that exacerbated it, because when they would come out to visit California to visit her mother, and they would make a whole trip out of it and see me as well. That's when I first started seeing her again, that same kind of face she made on the day of her wedding, where she was just kind of staring off into space. Because they would plan all these very not extravagant, but go to San Francisco, go to wine country, go to the aquariums, all the stuff and visit her mother and stepfather and her brother,
he was fourth grade at the time.
Yeah. And her visible misery was something I started noticing even more and more. Mm-hmm. Just kind of checking out.
So you're starting to see it. You've been in College Town.
College Station.
I'm calling it College Town. College Town.
University
College Station. The university place. No, College Station. You've been there for a while. So now you're seeing like you're kind of dependent on him completely. Exactly. He's put you in a place where you're away from all of your support systems. Your families and your friends have moved away. What happens? Where is this breaking point?
So August?
Yes.
I'm Mr. Rain Man with the dates.
August 4th.
It's August. Yes. Picture it, Sicily, 1972. No, it was August of 2001. Mm-hmm. And the ex-husband decides I had helped him. I scored some kind of piece of music that he had his band kids do. And he's like, well, why don't you come out and we'll fly out and you can actually watch it and participate in the performance. And we'll have a nice visit. And plus you could help me build a computer. And
basically it was really more about the computer.
It was about me building a computer.
Okay, so he needed something from you. He wanted you to come out.
And I was getting a free trip.
Great. So you took the free trip.
So basically the plan was he was busy. Yeah. He sends her up to Dallas to pick me up. And our job is to go to Houston, go to Fry's Electronics, buy all the parts for this computer. And then eventually we're going to end up at his band event. So she and I are alone in the car. And this is
3 hours.
For 3 hours.
Uh-oh.
And this is the first time when I hear the
I can't do it.
I can't do this anymore.
Oh no.
And the first words out of my mouth, I was like giddy. I'm like, oh my God, we've been I want to say it. Your maid of honor and I, we were wondering, taking bets on how long your marriage would last.
You're like, yes, I win.
My square.
She's driving the car and she turns and looks at me with these are you shitting me? I'm like, no, seriously. And that's the first time I let her know, and I make her aware of when you got married. Your maid of honor
no one was happy.
The Crown Royal evening.
Drunk off a Crown Royal, and we're like, they are screwed, they are doomed, and told all of her war. She was just absolutely dumbfounded. And then it was like, so what are you going to do? And what's the plan? And that was it.
I couldn't do anything.
And my suggestion was, I asked, do you want to be married? And at the time, she's like, I don't really know. And I go, well, maybe you really ought to try counseling, because you should really. If you're going to make a break, you want to make a clean break, knowing full well, I'm done.
Yeah. And I've tried everything.
Yeah.
And of course, I bring up the counseling issue. Oh, no counseling. We don't need that.
I still have a question, though. Once you hear one of your friends say that to you, what is your realization? Is that like, shit, this is what I've been feeling and everyone else sees it? Why didn't I not see it earlier?
Yeah. No, exactly. That's exactly it. I had blinders on, I was focused on, I have these goals that I have to meet because of, I'm told you have to get married in your 20s. You have to have children. You have to da. By this time I had actually also decided that I didn't want children because I hate children.
You learned that from teaching.
I learned that. I didn't even have to learn that from teaching, but, it was, actually, it pretty much was teaching that set the deal there. But so, he's seeing my misery. I'm stuck.
The other thing, and just back up a little bit, is that in those times when they would come visit in San Francisco and visit me, we would go restaurants, comedy clubs. We'd go have a good time. And people thought we were the couple.
Oh,
that
wow.
she and I, and the reason why is because he was so oblivious. He would walk 10 feet
He had his
ahead.
plan. You know, he was going, this is where he was going, and he would walk ahead.
So he would just be walking ahead to going wherever. And we're walking through like some nasty parts of San Francisco. And I'm standing close to her because she's my friend.
Right.
And first of all, it's just polite. Right.
And I'm a slow walker.
This is also back when she and I really didn't have any interest in each other. It didn't really cross our minds. So she's just my
I was
friend.
married.
And we were starting to become close. Just as good friends.
Kind of a default because he put you in that situation.
But we also realized how much we had in common, that we had more in common. I had more in common with her than I did with him. And we had more in common than she did with him. And then we just kind of became really good friends. But I would be the one who would be kind of tend to her. And when he would just ditch her or something would go on, I was the one who was kind of like, so everybody just assumed we were the married couple.
Or at least dating, whatever.
Or dating.
So,
and he was just the goofy friend.
So when did you and your ex end up deciding that this was it? You're not going to do anymore?
Or I'm going to restate that. When did you decide?
Yeah.
It was definitely me. So, and again, here we get to the seedy part.
Because it slowly gets...
Chris and I, we'd get on, by this time there was instant messenger. And so we would instant message message each other. Yes, AOL, way back in the day. We're old. But and part of it also is that I'm trying to work on my thesis. And my ex is like, let's go here, let's do this, let's go do this, let's go do this. I'm like, I'm never finishing this fucking thesis. Never. Do you know how long it took me to finish my thesis?
No.
7 fucking years.
Whoa.
And it
because
took
of the
me,
distractions.
Wow.
Yeah, all of the distractions. And then I had a full he would just constantly he didn't want me finishing that degree.
Wow.
I don't think. But anyway, so finally he and I are chatting on AOL and things.
Was this by the CD? Did you use those CD? Okay.
Well, it started with when she started saying, I got to get out of here. It was pretty much because I'm a pretty decent guy. Like, if I'm getting flirted with, because I've had instance with meeting girls in theater programs who are married and just like, okay, and getting kind of on the edge of like, we're about to do something we were going to regret, and just kind of let's not do that. With Misty was once she was like, I am done. I was like, well, it's on.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it wasn't really like it's on. It's like I was open to that possibility. And of course, I waited for her to kind of give a hint.
Right.
So it just started with a little bit of flirting and here and there.
And actually, there was a trip I had taken to California by myself the December after 9/11. Just to see, I wanted to see my mom. I knew my ex couldn't go. It was, that he had band stuff to do. So I went out to visit my mom and I ended up spending a day with Chris. And, that's pretty much where I also, laid it all out then too. And,
where she was like, where she said to me, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm done with it. But it was also we were walking through San Francisco, my old stomping ground in high school. And we go from like North Beach down to the wharf by the water. It's raining. And I just suddenly had the urge to grab her and basically smash her up against the wall and make out with her.
But he didn't.
And I didn't do it. But it was like, it was on my mind. And I'm like, no, because it was more about consent. I don't know what your opinion of this whole thing was.
Oh no, I would have been totally for that.
But it was, it was in my, and then we ended up kind of by the water and I just kind of hugged her. Just innocently, and we just had a moment, and then it was we went out later and had like dinner and stuff. And, it was kind of after the fact that we both were like, that was like an intense moment. So in a way, I'm glad I didn't try anything.
Wait a minute, were you still married at the time?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's why this gets very seedy.
Has he ever smashed you up against the wall?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's been lots of wall smashing, Glenn.
In good ways.
In good ways, yes.
It was when she really said, finally out loud, "I'm done.
I'm done, but I can't get out of it.
I need to get out of it.
I can't.
So it wasn't like I feel like it was already over. She just needed, that
When
to
you
me
say
was
you can't, though, that means you didn't know how.
I was financially unable to do so.
Yeah.
And the fact that my income was based off of him.
Right.
I mean, like my students were his
guests.
students.
It was she had a long process of kind of like opening her own accounts in secret, starting her own credit cards in secret.
All that
moving
stuff
money
on the how to divorce.
It's a narcissist. Yeah.
I started doing these things very secretly, and I'm still teaching flute lessons, and I'm still teaching flute sectionals during the day with all of the College Station bands. And finally, a band parent. So I've been trying to look for a job, like either in College Station, outside of College Station. I didn't care. I was just looking everywhere for a job. I was
for a
even
job
looking
that paid more than what you were getting.
so I could leave. And that wasn't like he technically was sort of my boss at, along with all the other band directors as well. So, so finally in 2003, one of, I had been talking about, looking for jobs elsewhere, and my ex was going to have to come with me, obviously. Well, one of the band parents just absolutely loved him and just didn't want to see him move. So she happened to know of a job at a council of governments, which in Texas, there are these, all counties are broken up into regions, and each region has a council of governments that has like multiple counties, multiple cities in it. And they basically, it's basically for grant funds, deciding like for block grants, how things get distributed. So I was specifically the job was specifically for managing criminal justice block grants and Homeland Security block grants, which was, at that time, very, very big.
Yeah.
So,
but completely different than what you were doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But closer to what you were educated for.
Yeah.
Right. So that was perfect. I interviewed for the job. I got it. And that was 2003. So
hold on. We jumped from 2001 where you're with Chris saying, I want out. And now we're still 2 years later and you're still married and you're still searching for a job to get out.
And he and I are having an affair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're actively planning. She's telling him that she's going up to the school to do her master's degree stuff, and we're shacking up in a hotel. Blatantly.
Or
really?
I once told him that I was going to California, because I was actually going to California to visit him. I didn't say I was going to visit him. And my mom had since moved back to Texas. And so I told him I was going to California for a job interview.
Wow.
And he punched a hole in the wall, by the way, for that. He wasn't typically violent. There was like a couple of times where he'd pushed me and I'd fallen down.
And this wasn't because he thought she was doing anything. He
didn't know I was
just was the idea that she wanted to move out of Texas.
Yeah, leaving.
That was all.
That I
So it was
looking
nothing to do with
elsewhere.
anything.
No.
He didn't have any idea.
He still had no idea.
He just didn't want to leave.
He didn't want to leave where he was.
Wow.
Really? So he wanted to keep you there, and he
Right.
didn't want you to go and look for jobs elsewhere.
Right. And be independent.
Okay.
So, so there were several times, even when I went to California, I would tell him I was going to Dallas and, visiting family or working on my thesis, and he was busy. So he, football games and all that stuff that band directors have to do, contests and things. So I pick those times, and fly out, or I drive up to Dallas or fly out to California or fly him, wherever. So we were having a relationship while I was still married. So that's the seedy part.
But you were also trying to find a way to get out.
Exactly.
Because in your
It
mind, it
wasn't-
was already over.
She was
Right.
doing
In
it
my
slowly.
mind,
Yeah.
I was not married to this man anymore.
Yeah.
You were slowly diverting money to your own account. You were actively looking for work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was getting my own credit cards. I was, slowly stockpiling things. And we still had stuff that I'd had prior to the marriage. So I knew I would be able to keep that sort of thing. So by 2003, I had that job. It was more than I was making than I had ever made. And get this, it was $27,500 a year.
It's not
It
bad living
wasn't, but in College
Bumblefuck,
Station,
Texas.
Right,
in
yeah.
2003,
It's much
it
different.
wasn't bad. I still would have struggled.
Yeah.
So it's still, I tried, just kind of stockpiling the money. And ultimately in spring of 2003, I had actually looked for an apartment and came inches literally from signing a lease on an apartment, and I just couldn't do it.
Chickened
And
out.
what stopped you?
I was afraid. I was like, okay, so this is going to cost me so much. I mean, I still kind of felt like financially I couldn't do it. Part of it was also, I haven't really tried. We hadn't done the counseling thing, and he had refused it before. But so I ended up chickening out, and then kind of stayed with it for another year.
So did you guys end up trying the...
We did. So in 2004, I finally moved out. And that was the sickest I had ever felt in my life. I don't know if it was like food poisoning or if it was just my nerves or what, because we had just had like a really bad storm and the water had been contaminated. So there was partially, I think that I might have had food poisoning, but it just happened to align with the fact that I moved out. And that's when we started the counseling.
So you tried to move out the year before and didn't want to do it or couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
What made you finally say I'm doing it this time?
Yeah.
A year later. Was it just another year of everything else and nothing changed?
Yeah, nothing had changed. We were still kind of, we still had a relationship going.
And we made it clear that it wasn't like we were planning some future
Yeah,
together.
we
We were
weren't
just
gonna get
really good
married.
friends, and we were enjoying our
And we
company.
were friends with benefits.
But there was also kind of this. I was also very clear that hoping that she didn't want to just leave her husband and then jump onto me as a kind of a rebound thing.
Right.
And it was more about making sure that when she finally did get single, I wanted her to, as her friend, enjoy being single, go and have a life and all that stuff. Whatever, if anything happened to us down the road, that's different. But don't come cling to me, because I thought that would be bad.
Right. So, so basically I kind of stuck it out just for another year, just to make sure that I felt like financially comfortable, that he was pissing me off still more and more and more. And I finally I'd had it and got an apartment, and then told him, after I had signed the lease, that I'm leaving. And my mom came down and helped me pack. He stayed with his parents for a weekend, and
what was his reaction?
Yeah,
because it
that's
seems
what I'm
like as a
wondering.
No,
narcissist,
he
he would
was-
be, or as having that behavior.
Yeah.
It could be. I don't know. I don't want to say violent, but it could be abrasive.
It was. I mean, like he was very upset, obviously, which didn't help out. And he wasn't violent, but he was just like, no, don't go. Like really
Upset.
trying to
He
keep
became
on to the
suddenly
thing, and
very
then
needy.
and that's when he's like, well, I'll do counseling. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so we did marriage counseling, but I still moved out.
Right.
Was his
And-
mom the counselor?
No,
Yeah,
fortunately,
she was.
no.
They got a good
But
rate.
she did recommend the marriage counselor.
And-
And she was a good marriage counselor. It's just that basically when, we had our couples sessions and then we had our individual sessions. And I told her during my individual session with her, I'm like, nothing's going to change. I said, I'm done. I'm not, that this is it. And
It's too late.
so she basically, yeah, exactly. It was too late. So she basically recommended that we get a divorce. And so it happened.
So, but the divorce happened in 2005.
So yeah, we were separated for technically a year, not legally separated, but separated, and that's when we were doing the counseling, and we would go out on dates. In fact,
attempt.
Trying to attempt to make amends with each other and make it work.
Was there any time during that counseling or trying to make it work that you thought, well, maybe it could?
No, I didn't. I never did. And the interesting part of that is that's when I got a cooking bug. Because he always said that he was like the best cook on the planet. He was very braggadocious about that. And
that he was classically trained in French cuisine.
Trained,
We
which
found out that meant
watching Julia Childs on PBS.
I was going to say, who did he watch on TV?
It was Julia Childs on TBS or on PBS. And so I ended up, I decided, well, I'm living on my own now. I need to cook for myself. I'm not going to eat out all the time. I don't have the money to do so. And one of our dates was I made chicken marsala, and he came over and ate it. And the look on his face when he actually ate the food and was like, this is really good. Because if I ever tried to cook when we were married, he'd be like over my shoulder, telling me what to do or telling me I'm doing something wrong. And he would tell our friends, that I boiled water or that I burned water.
she can cook circles around him, by the way.
Wow.
She learned it all basically after she moved out and left him.
Yeah,
Well,
how's your veal marsala?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Chicken. Anybody can do chicken.
Yeah. So, but, I think he finally realized, oh, hey, I've been kind of holding her back. But still, nothing changed. I wouldn't even let him know I lived in a gated apartment complex. I wouldn't let him know the code. I would meet him at the manager's office.
So you really had
I didn't even want him to know where I lived.
Okay. And so you guys had gone through all of this counseling. You tried dating again. You tried going through this. At what point after that did you go, I'm done? Like, I've put in all the effort that I'm going to put in and I'm ready to walk away.
2003. Even when I moved out, I was done.
So let me ask you this.
I think
Absolutely done.
you made up your mind. I think somewhere in late 2001 was when you really made up your mind.
Yeah, and basically, I was just humoring my ex
You had
at
to
the
get
time.
your ducks in a row.
But if you got counseling in 2001, do you think that would have changed it, or you were done at that point?
I think the counseling was just to satisfy him.
Wow.
Well, but
To
in
kind of go through those and
2001,
check those boxes off.
in 2001,
So
I
it was-
think
Go ahead.
I don't think he would have been receptive. Even if he had gone, I don't think he would have followed through with what the counselor's recommendations were.
So you think the 4 years between 2001 and 2005, when the divorce was finalized, that was necessary for him, but also maybe for you to make sure all this.
He had to be threatened with her leaving for him to even consider counseling.
Right.
And then I think at that point she was like, fine, I'll go do it, because it was just kind of like another box to check off.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had already been stockpiling money and doing all this stuff to be able to leave, that I've made up my mind in 2001.
So because I can relate to this in a bit. It's kind of like the same scenario of which when you were 21, 22, you're like, well, I'm going to accept this proposal because this is what's supposed to happen next.
Right.
And you know what? The challenges we have right now are challenges I see with other couples, my parents and other role models. So this is normal. And this is the direction I'm going. So I do it. But at the same time, when it came time to you making a decision, before you could officially say, I'm done, it feels like the right thing to do to be like, well, you know what? I know in my mind I'm done, but I want to make sure. So I'm going to go through the marriage counseling. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to let him come to terms with it, maybe something will change, but I want to make sure that I've done my due diligence in order to make sure before I leave this marriage, I've exhausted all of my resources.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And I completely get that.
I tried everything, and I can say that I tried everything.
Right.
Even though emotionally and mentally, I was out of that relationship long before I was out of the relationship.
But that's a good way to make sure that you have the closure and that I'm ready to move on because you've done everything that you felt that you could.
Right. And I definitely have that closure. I'm not sure that he had that closure, but.
Yeah, well, in fact, the frustrating part was that she was knowing his mental state and how he suddenly became very needy when she moved out. She was also trying to be very
loving and nurturing, compassionate to his.
Very compassionate. Even though she knew she wanted to leave, she was trying to be compassionate, and he became so clingy. And the process dragged on, and she went through the motions to try to ease him out of the marriage. And basically, once they had some kind of a formal divorce thing in writing, or that was kind of agreed upon, he had a girlfriend.
Oh my God, really?
But that makes sense.
My question is this. Was
the
marriage
turn.
to him just simply something he needed to do? He needed to have a wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that he didn't know how to be alone.
Right.
And he needed somebody there.
But also fits his personality from what you've said. Like he has a goal, he wants to go do it, and then he's on his way and done. And whether or not you're with me or not, I'm going to go this way. Just even walking on the sidewalk is sort of an analogy for this.
Right.
I'm going to go that way, and
right.
I'm going to leave you behind, and you're going to catch up with me. We're going to be there at the same time at the end. But I don't have to be there with you. It's just like, whatever.
When Misty found out that he was dating this woman, it was kind of like, in her mind, I remember her saying, God, if he could only have found this girlfriend 2 years ago.
Wow.
And just save me the trouble, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised that he never cheated on me.
Do you think he didn't?
I know he didn't. Yeah. And
Did you just shake your head, boyfriend? Oh,
No,
okay. Sorry.
It's surprising.
Yeah.
It is surprising. First of all, we didn't have sex. Once I started having sex with him, with Chris, I stopped having sex with my ex.
For like 2 years?
Oh, no.
Like
5.
a long time.
Oh, that's a
There
long
was
time.
also a point where you got something in the mail from Victoria's Secret or something. And
he looked at my email while I was at the gym. That's what he did.
There was some
and
kind
there
of
was a receipt from Victoria's Secret.
But wasn't there
for,
something?
like-
There was something where he kind of knew something was not right because
Yeah.
he wrote me and he said, "Yeah." And I don't think it was anything.
How ironic.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't anything blatant. But he knew something was going on between her and I.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't have any details, but he basically said, "Look,
Because the lingerie was sent to him. And
Oh.
it was a receipt and
Chris
it was
has
sent to
a
him.
fetish.
Because
Yeah.
I'm not,
I'm like, I like
I'm not
cakes.
having
What do
it
you
sent
want?
to my house. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He'd
Oh,
find
that's
it.
right.
And so I had to send it to him. And it was for
he saw the
an
receipt on
upcoming
your
trip.
email, and it was addressed to me. I'm like, I like silly hats. What do you want from me?" No, but he basically wrote me and said, "Look, we're going through some stuff, and you need to just back off. Okay, you're a friend of mine, and this and that." And we'd also at the point where because he was such an asshole that he and I weren't really all that good of friends going back to when she first decided she was going to leave him, just kind of humoring him. And of course, I know the truth, which is she's out of here, dude. But I just was like, okay, that's fair. So when they finally officially broke up, or divorced, he contacted me and was like, "Hey, I hope we can still be friends. And if there's anything that happened between you and her, that's fine. It's no big deal."
I have a girlfriend now.
I have a girlfriend now.
exactly.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
And
Really?
I if I'd like you to come to our wedding and this, that, and that.
Yeah.
And,
The boyfriend are like.
and I actually, he was in
I want you
Vegas.
to be a groomsman, not a best man anymore.
What's really crazy is that he was in Vegas by himself while she was in Vegas visiting me. So I left my hotel room with his ex-wife to go meet him for a drink, where he's like, "Hey, no big deal, water on the bridge. By the way, I'm engaged. Do you want to still be friends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can." I didn't think we were going to be best buddies, but I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool. By the way, yeah, Misty and I did kind of, you're okay with that? Because at this point,
Yeah.
Well, that you actually hadn't really said anything, but he found out somehow, and I'm not really sure how he found out that we had actually had an affair.
$5,000 of Victoria's.
The Victoria's Secret
Well,
stuff.
yeah. Okay,
Charged to his account.
But basically, after we were divorced, I was working for. I had moved on from the Council of Governments and was working for a subsidiary of Texas A&M that handled the Homeland Security grant as a state administrative agency. And so, stop it. So they're making faces at me.
They're playing the flute.
So, anyway,
the air
The
flute.
Department of Homeland Flute Security.
yeah. So, but basically, I was a grants monitor for the Department of Homeland Security for the state of Texas. And so I was making more money. And we finally got. Where am I going with this?
I don't know.
Now I lost it.
I know exactly where you're going with this. What happened is that eventually Misty and I, she started dating other people. I was like, you should go have a good time. and
Actually, I dated one firefighter.
yeah,
Okay.
she had a social life. She's out. Guys are interested in her. She had a good time.
Chris
And-
masturbated.
Yeah. Frantically. Anyway, no, but when she and I both kind of independently were like enjoying being single and our careers were going fine, everything was great. We just got engaged. We just kind of realized how compatible we were.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. Like we're so compatible intellectually and mentally.
So 2005, she gets divorced. You end the affair?
No.
No, but
we were still
just-
fucking. Oh, I remember where I was going.
I'm just waiting for Chris to explain his stable career.
Yeah, thanks. No, we were still kind of having an affair, but my whole thing was
so
like,
confused.
you should
It
really.
wasn't exclusive. You guys
you
do whatever
should
you
go
want.
date.
We dated other
Yeah.
people.
You
and
should go date other people because
Yeah.
there's more. I was seeing a woman who the theater woman from years earlier left her husband, and she and I had a little fling. No, but what you're getting at is that once she and I got engaged in early 2006, her ex contacts me and says, "Here's the wedding date. I'm getting married. Do you want to go? Do you want to be at our wedding?" And I go, "Well, that's funny you should say that because I'm engaged too." And I think you know her. It's your ex-wife. And he was like, "Oh."
Yes, this is
That's where it's
where
going.
my story was going.
And
so I'm working.
They're still living in College
We're all
Station,
living in
which
College
is a small
Station.
town.
And one of my colleagues where I was working had heard from my ex's new fiance that I had been screwing around with Chris for our entire
Since college.
No, since like the minute we got married.
Yeah.
Is
when you
what-
were really in the closet drinking Crown Royal.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Big difference.
So she started these nasty rumors about me, which, partially true, but not to the extent like it. I had tried for 3 years, I guess, before we ever did anything.
Yeah.
And, so
I actually
he
wrote
ended
him.
up, Chris ended up emailing my ex and saying,
What I said to him was that up until this point, I was your biggest champion as far as getting her to tell you the truth and get you two to go to counseling. And every conversation that I had with your wife about your marriage was me saying, you two should work this out and see if you can, whatever you can do, go have counseling. Because if it's not going to work out, you need to make sure. And I said, you refuse to go. You pissed your marriage away. That's what I said to him.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you lost. And I don't feel any guilt at all over this because you had your chance. And you even had me backing you up and trying to get you two to go to counseling and you ignored it. So go fuck yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time I
Yeah.
talked to him. Because I was like absolutely livid.
And the good thing about our divorce actually was we had no children, thankfully. He now has 2. So he apparently wanted children and never told me.
Oh,
So
And good on
'cause
him for having him
yeah.
now. That's
Yeah,
great.
he said, he always told me after I had said, I don't want children, he's like, well, our band kids are our children. So, that's kind of how it works. So he's like, it seemed like he was on the same page with me with that. And so now he's got 2 kids. And he wasn't going to leave College Station with me, but he left College Station with his current wife. They moved actually back to the Fort Worth area, technically. So yeah, I think it's worked out best for the both of us. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, no, there wasn't anything. Never mind. I already said that. Sorry.
So again, so from 2000, so I'm still blown away that Chris, where were you at during the 2005, 2006 year? Were you still in California at that point?
No, 2005, I was heavily involved in improv with these 2 clowns.
Yeah, that's right.
Give me an appliance that isn't a blender.
Make a suggestion, please.
No, I had a couple of years of being unemployed and being miserable, and I got a job in the gaming industry, and I was doing improv and happy. And
so you guys
he
still
was in a
weren't
good
close?
place.
You guys,
she was in Texas. I was in California.
He was here with us 2
Yeah.
yo-yos, me and Glenn.
and you guys still continued your relationship, even though it was not
We
exclusive.
probably saw each other.
How in the hell did you get engaged? What was it like?
That's
One person asks the other person.
No, it really came down to, because I had no interest in getting engaged or at anything. I just gotten to the point where I was comfortable not being in a relationship. I'd gotten over the whole being alone thing.
Yeah,
which I
because you
think
were
is-
living in Vegas.
Yeah.
Hello.
But I think it's
Living the
important.
improv dream.
It's
Yeah.
important for me,
Boy.
especially to
Big
get to the point in my
comedy,
life
little
where
theater.
I was comfortable being by myself, and I didn't feel like I had to date. And I was kind of long distance. This other woman
In California.
who is my own hometown in Sacramento, she had left her husband, and she and I kind of long distance dated, and that was fun. But she was one of those people who was within 2 months was like, "I'm in love with you," and my reaction was, "That's wonderful. You need to slow down, because I think, not because I don't like you, but
You want to go?
you probably need to get divorced and kind of live a little bit, and let's not get caught up in that." So I just
Because
kind of put
I'm
the
in an
brakes.
improv team.
Yeah.
That's a whole
And that's
incestual
really
thing.
busy.
in
And
itself.
I'm
That
gonna
shows
have
the
to.
Rockin' Java and the Bourbon Street.
And I
I'm
hate
cut
to-
your mics off.
Sorry,
what you're saying is I had to Schwartz her Figliano. Is what you're
Oh.
saying.
Yeah.
So, and I was seeing somebody as well regularly who had just come out of a relationship where his wife was cheating on him. So that wasn't necessarily going to be a healthy relationship.
The irony of this is that that
was
other
fun.
woman was really adamant, like that she was in love with me and talking about marriage, and she was just like, I had built a nice emotional fortress for myself, and she was chipping away at it. She was, and this is like Little Miss. The Misty's like Spock, right?
Yeah, I'm
And this other
aloof.
woman is just like very emotional. Yeah, Kirk unit is what she
Mario
called
Yeah,
it.
yeah. He wants me to call him Kirk unit
like
all the
Chekhov.
time, the whole
Yeah.
bald thing.
But
That's weird.
at one point, because I was always very honest about what I was doing, and I would tell her, I'm kind of seeing this other woman, and I'd tell this other woman, this is my friend Misty, and I always honest about everything. And at one point I said, look, I'm having these really strange feelings towards the both of you. I'm confused, and I'm feeling like I'm getting attached to you both.
And
And
you and I got.
Yeah, I think that's about when you
Yeah,
two
yeah.
hooked up.
That's definitely one.
After you got
Yeah.
the suggestion of piano keys.
Yeah. The suggestion is salad. Okay. So what happened is when
Boyfriend's losing it.
I told both Misty and the other kind of girlfriend, look, here's what's going on. If you guys, neither of you want to have a relationship with me again, it's fine. But you need to know I'm having conflicted feelings, and I don't know what I'm feeling.
And he asked me specifically, do you love me? And I said, yes, I do.
The reaction I got was so different from these two. The other woman was like, who's this bitch? Fuck her. God damn it, you're a piece of shit.
And I'd known him longer. So
And Misty says, you are my best friend. I love you. Whoever you end up with, I want to be at your wedding.
And we'll still be friends.
By the way, for the audience,
We'll
they're
still
laughing
be
because
friends.
I'm holding an oven thermometer like Harry Potter. So Wingardium Leviosa.
It's Leviosa.
Leviosa.
Damn it.
Anyways, so basically, he got two different reactions. My reaction was very,
But you're
loving.
stoic
and
too. So
I'm stoic, but I was upset, but I understood, and I always knew that, that relationship was the relationship between me and Chris was never going to go anywhere. I mean, that's kind of how I had put it in my head. That way I didn't get I didn't get attached, I didn't want to get attached to the feeling of him being.
But you made those statements to him. How did that turn into? How did that turn into the engagement?
Yeah. So what happens is, the other woman.
Yeah.
She's a crazy nut job,
Yep.
and so he realizes that there's no way he can be in a relationship with that, because he is also stoic and introverted,
Chris?
and I know it's crazy.
Chris?
Yeah, seriously, he's introverted, but can bring out the extroversion
hear this?
on.
No, we're talking about sourdough.
So, basically, he and I had more in common than he did with her. So he needs someone who is who is thinking and
Not hysterical.
who can take information in, process it, and not be offended by the fact that he was confused.
Right.
And I understood that. Basically I said, I love you. I want you to be happy. We'll still be best friends, and whatever decision you make. And, that was pretty much it. And then he talks to.
That's an analytical level. What about the emotional level?
The emotional level. I was dying inside, to be honest. And this is the first time he's really hearing this, is that I was devastated, because to this point, I didn't realize how much I loved him. And, it was, it really was devastating for me, but I also wanted him to be happy. And and that's what true love is, right? True love is wanting the other person to be happy, whether it's with you or with somebody else.
Setting them free. And if they come back.
Yeah, exactly. So gave him my entire heart and told him exactly how I felt. And, that he made his decision.
Well, and I also encouraged her to date other people, which she did. And it
I had already done this by this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it was also fairly slowly just getting to me.
Yeah.
That she was, I mean, it was my idea. I wanted her to go out and enjoy being single as her friend.
And basically,
Well, it sounds like
asking details.
You both were loving each other with an open hand. It's like, I'm not going to crush you. In so many ways. I don't need to know the details, Chris. But yeah, I mean, you weren't crushing each other with your insecurities or controlling factors or anything like that.
We were very determined to be like two people on our own path,
right?
Who were just kind of not even choosing to be going in the same direction. We just happened to be going in the same direction in life.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of noticed we're both
She gives you that information though. She tells you she loves you. She tells you whatever you choose is good. You have the information from Crazy Girl.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting there making this decision. Well,
there wasn't really a decision, because I just kind of felt like I needed to back off of both of them, But
his improv skills suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, dude, what's happening? Our shows are you're not.
I also left the improv groups because my job became insane.
Thank God.
My job was really stupid. But
remember Chris?
Robert missed you.
Yeah, no, they were having
The
me
Christian Coffee House.
I was doing 10, 12-hour days at work. Anyway, but it was only like a month later that I realized that first of all, even if Misty had been happily married and never left her husband, this other girlfriend, she really needed to back away. She was going too fast towards me. And I, for her own sake, was like, I need to cut you loose because you're going to make a mistake with me. I think that's probably some of the best things I ever did for women is tell them, I'm going to leave so that you don't get stuck with me. You're welcome.
Yeah.
But it was only
Thanks.
it was maybe like a month or two later that she and I were having a conversation. And I just said to her, literally, we're going to get married. And she said, yep. I mean, it was that simple. We had just
there
realized
was no proposal really.
There
was no aquarium
mind
involved.
Going through
There was no
everything that you've been
schedule, like,
through,
this is what we're going to do.
and the marriage with
Okay,
her,
then
your
Spock
own
are gonna
thing,
do
it just
Right, they're just
naturally
gonna-
happened.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
naturally was like, this is going to work between the two of us. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
But there were also various things that I needed. I mean, I didn't have an agenda in it, but it was like she needed to be independent. She needed to kind of experience being single and realize that guys were after her, that she was going to be completely okay by herself. And when that happened, she changed.
and then
as a
she was
person.
ready for you.
But
Yes.
yeah, but I had also gone through a similar journey just a little earlier. Having never been married, I had gotten over this idea that I needed to be with somebody. And so she reached that point too. And when she did, all of a sudden I realized what are the odds? Because again, analytical, what are the odds I'm going to find somebody that I'm this compatible with? Because I'd never met anybody who, male or female, where she just got what I was saying. No matter what the topic, she just knew it. I didn't have to explain it to her.
Well, we really had a long history. I mean, at this point, we've known
Going
each
back to
other since
94.
94. And this is 2005.
You two are real life Harry met Sally.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No, I'm seeing that because you two became best friends through life and other relationships.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Except, in Harry Met Sally,
Who got the wagon wheel?
the next morning,
Terrible.
the next morning when it's all awkward. Yeah, it wasn't awkward. The next morning it was like, you ready for round two?
So, and
You
kind of,
like just laying there like, really, you want to cuddle?
Which one of us is the dog in this situation, Harry?
but and when Harry Met Sally is a great example because Bruno,
She's really white.
Misty?
what's his name? I know, right? What's his name? Bruno
Bruno
Kirby. His character says adultery is a symptom of. I don't remember the exact quote,
their
but
problems?
adultery
musical theater
is not a
speech.
cause; it's a symptom.
Of someone being in an improv class.
So my whole thing was it was yes, I'm an adulterer, but it was a symptom of how bad the relationship was with my
But
ex-husband.
you were well past being married by the time you
Right.
cheated.
No,
And-
exactly.
And again,
Yes.
I'm using air quotes as cheating because, humanity being what it is, we claim to be the only species that is monogamous. Fuck that. We're not. We just think we are.
No. Yeah, exactly. But no, seriously. I mean, the whole affair with Chris really was just basically a symptom that my marriage was done.
Yeah, but you tried for 3 years.
I did.
And then you made the decision to move forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's very complicated. But so, February 2006, we were formally engaged and we actually gave each other tokens. So like
Laundry
instead of
tokens?
instead of just like a normally engagement
Car wash tokens.
instead of a normal
black
engagement
person.
ring, he gave me like it's actually a wedding band with a French saying on it, and
What does it say?
it says "Encore un amour un esprit." Wait, I have to look at it
Give
now.
me the cheese.
Un
I'm
esprit.
La singe
Le
dans
singe dans
les
les
branches.
branches.
Voulez-vous avec fromage?
So I
Gouda.
can't remember which one's first, and I
I love
can't read
being
it because
with
I'm
cheese.
freaking old. Un esprit, un cœur, un amour. Basically,
Life and spirit.
one spirit, one heart, one love. And then I gave him a bracelet
One ring to rule
that
them all.
was it was very at the time we were very into Ayn Rand.
You were into
Wait,
what?
That's a whole nother
You were into
podcast.
what? You were
Yeah.
into what?
She said Ayn Rand.
Do you like Fountainhead? I love Fountainhead. Two totally different conversations.
Yeah, from more of a self-empowerment point of view, not so much
not the
politics.
objectivist.
Yes,
Yeah, definitely not the politics.
it is easily my favorite fable.
We read Atlas Shrugged aloud together.
But
We're still working on it.
so in
10 years in.
is it Atlas Shrugged or Fountainhead?
Yeah. Hey, tonight I'm thinking of
So
dining
any-
at Gulch Gulch. What do
Okay,
you think of-
with the comedy. So not with the enough with the comedy right now.
What do you feel about L. Ron Hubbard's dynamics?
No, seriously, it was really more about the self-empowerment. But Henry Rourke in the book gives his wife a bracelet made of the
metal
of
that
the
he
metal
invented.
that he made.
Invented?
Yeah.
That he invented.
Reardon metal.
And she's like, "Oh, this is great," and she just kind of tosses it away. So I gave him a metal bracelet that looked it was like chains and
The important part of that is the husband made the wife this thing of a metal that he invented.
Right.
She was like, "That's wonderful," and threw it away. But then Dagny, this other woman, she's like, "I'll take it. Here, in fact, I will give you my priceless diamond bracelet for that."
your metal.
Because she's
Yeah.
like, "Your
That's
husband
worth
made
something.
that. He invented that with his own mind. I want that. That's more valuable to me than that stupid diamond."
So it was more of a gesture of like, it's kind of a symbolic thing, whatever. So he
Because you
wears
didn't
it.
actually invent a metal.
No,
I
I did
did.
not invent the metal. It's
Right.
just, it's regular
I invented a kind
platinum,
of
so-
fart that you do in the shower.
Oh, no.
Well, sure. later.
Don't give us an example,
It involves
please.
a lot of soap.
Could you do it with your arm and
No,
your
no,
hand?
no.
No, he really means a
No,
fart.
I mean it. You're basically in the shower. You get all soapy.
Well,
and
this
when
would be a good spot for
stop?
our soap
For our
commercial.
sponsor.
For our sponsor.
Palm Olive.
Sponsor.
It's
can
for
do
our
shower
Life, Laughter,
farts.
Divorce soap. I'm going to show you some.
To
This
make a long-
podcast brought to you by Palm Olive.
So to make a long story even longer, by February 2006, we're engaged and I move in. I get a job with the health department here and move in May 2006.
Yeah.
May 2006.
Long years.
So
Yeah,
we
we
hit
just
our
had a
10th anniversary
March.
in March because
I
we
saw
got
the picture
married
on
in
Facebook.
2008, but I moved here in 2006. So I'm
So you had
actually about to hit my 12-year anniversary at the health district.
Wow.
So
at
about
the end of this month.
2 year engagement with you guys, and then the full marriage, and good to go.
Yeah.
You're in
and-
Vegas though. That should
Yeah,
happen
I
in
know.
like a
No,
weekend.
seriously. So that's my story.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking to it.